Welcome to Today in the News on Vanguard Live. I am Precious Chukudi. We begin with the front pages of Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with Niger. AU plans sanction against Hunter's supporters. Rider says there wants impact assessments of ECOWAS force. Rejects interference by non-African states. Suspends Niger over coup. Absalami delivers military hunters' terms to ECOWAS. Says diplomacy will see the better of situation. Notes meeting with Niger hunters fruitful. Suspected jihadist killed 12 Niger troops, says state TV. Power cut in Niger threatens to spoil millions of vaccine as sanction bites, UN says. Military intervention in Niger's war between brothers, El-Rufai warns ECOWAS. Also see a photo story showing General Absalami on talks with Niger hunters. And on page 4, Tinubu sends NIMC boss on terminal leave. Stories about Wike to FCT officials. Wahala don't come. I will increase your BP. You can see that on page 4. Tribunal dismisses petition seeking to nullify Reps Deputy Speaker's election. On page 9, UK police charges ex-petroleum minister Alison Madueke with bribery. On page 4, 34 years after, Obaseki settles late Ambrose Ali's benefits, releases 1.3 billion naira for Monarch. And lastly, on the front page of Vanguard, gas flaring, Nigeria loses 34.1 billion naira as oil firms flare 12.7 MSCF. All right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with anger states warehouse rice, delay palliative sharing. The writer says Borno distributes rice to 400,000 households. Workers lament hunger, demands relief. Labour insists 5 billion naira not enough. Gombe promises workers 10,000 naira. Anambra 12,000 naira. Stories below page 17. Naira slump. Manufacturers' raw material imports hit 8 trillion naira. Associates mourn slain senators aid, demands killer soldiers arrest. You can see that on pages 4 and 5. Ogun doctors plan September 1st strike over unpaid allowance. Stories above. EFCC mom as Desiani faces bribery charge in UK. On page 18, federal government, state, local governments share 966 billion naira July revenue. Last year on front page of the Punch newspaper. Niger AU plans fresh sanctions. Salami warned against war. Let's move on to the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with federal government ignores 17-year-old concession fee debts, renews terminal leases. You can see that on page 6. On page 7, Tinubu retires NIMC boss Okesko Kaldusote as acting DG. Made in Nigeria phones, another good idea out for execution. You can read that on page 12. How rising unemployment orders worsen school dropout rates. You can read more on page 4. UK police arraigned Desiani October 2nd for bribery, recover $53 million assets. And stories above, we have excess crude account down to $174,000 as federal government orders share 966 billion naira in July. And that's how we can take on the front pages of the papers. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. If you're just joining us Today in the News on Vanguard Live, I am Precious Chukudi. Joining me to talk about some of the stories on the front pages of the papers this morning is Mr. Gben Rolajigbe, the Executive Director of Emergency and Risk Alert. Good morning, sir. It's good to have you join me this morning on the program.
It's a pleasure being with you.
All right, let's delve in. And of course, the African Union has asked its commission to compile a list of members of the military junta and their supporters in Niger for targeted sanction and application of individual punitive measures. What's your take?
Well, I think just out of both, there's nothing special about that. All in Africa, we are cool. We become a common occurrence across the countries in Africa. The challenge is that the challenge is to embark on peer review of what African presidents are doing, even in democracy. Most of them are worse than military dictators, changing their constitution and everything. AU will say nothing about that. They will not do anything before it gets to this of sensitivity. What actually defines Africa today is what you extreme poverty and anguish that are bred by corruption, are bred by selfish policies of head of governments in Africa. So you can't silence gun, even in terms of conflict, in terms of violence, without taking the welfare of your countrymen and women serious in Africa. Africans are going through a lot in their various countries. And the president and the head of governments in such, they don't give a youth for that. So you have a relationship that's master servants between African leaders or rulers rather and citizens. It is these loopholes in the welfare, in the security, and as a matter of fact in the peace environment that allow military incursion in Africa. Are you not taken aback that a country like France will summon all African rulers to France? A country like Russia will summon all African leaders and everything, as if African is doing. Our leaders don't know what they are doing. They don't know what this country are trying to do. They are trying to colonize Africa. It's just like a pre-colonial setting that we are in already. Recolonization of Africa is what is going on. They don't know when they are being summoned and everything. And you see this now, some gang of people who are not democratically positioned are now taking over government. Loopholes that have been rulers that we have in Africa, throwing their countries into abyss of poverty, abyss of crisis and conflict, abyss of lack and want. And as a matter of fact, there is intrusion of fears across the states in Africa. These are challenges that leaders are elected to take up and take serious. It is only when you can see, it's obvious and visible that there is difference between democracy and military dictatorship. That is when people will rise up against the gun and join the leader to silence those guns in Africa. But as it stands today, most African people are wallowing in poverty and everything. And what you have, both at AU level and at ECOWAS level, you have AU of, in fact, AU of state and ECOWAS of state, and not AU of people of Africa, and not ECOWAS of people of the sub-region of West Africa. Those are the challenges until you are able to carry out peer review that we ensure that rulers in Africa follow the rules and regulations that guide democracy. And the citizens are able to see the difference between dictatorship and democracy. There will be no end to this crisis you are seeing in Africa today. So it's not going to stop, even at Niger, until we take issues serious in this continent.
All right. The ECOWAS mediator, that's Alison Madueke, has actually said that there are signs of progress and he still hopes for a peaceful resolution. What are your thoughts from what he said?
Even going to war with Niger is like cutting your nose to spite your face without even a salam report. It's just like cutting off your nose to spite your face. So it's going to blow on everyone's faces. If you go to war in Niger today, the same trouble that war in Libya generated is the same thing that will happen. Niger, you might be looking at it as a very small country, tiny country, but you can't just use a strategy of killing ants or killing housefly to go to war in Niger. You will be shocked and surprised that is going to disrupt the whole political situations and economic situations in the sub-region. It's going to tinker with security and peace in the sub-region of West Africa and even beyond. Because of vested interests, when you are going to war, when you are looking at situation, it is not only the country, this what just happened there. And the consequence, you have to do an analysis of consequence of your action, which include one, the interest of those who will be involved. People from other parts of Africa are going to be involved in that war. And you can't predict the consequence, like what NATO did to Libya. Even within the within the African region, the sub-region of West Africa particularly, you have seen Burkina Faso warming up in support of Niger. You have seen Mali warming up in support of Niger. So what type of continent do you think you will have after the war? There is no alternative to mediation. What you can do, the damage control, and of course internally, you could see that the people, the Nigerians, rallying around the military usurpers. What is that telling you? They couldn't see the difference between the democracy they had and the current dictatorship. And what they are trying to do, what the message they are sending around is that we love what we have. And who are you as a stand-up? Do you love their country when the of war starts, because it's going to affect fight in Niger? Do you know how many Nigerian IDP refugees are in Niger? Do you know how many of them are there? Over 300,000. What will be their fate? Even the person you want to install, the ousted president, is still there at the mercy of the president that you want to remove and impose. Do you know what the fate is going to suffer? So they better understand these contextual issues the way it is and leave the people of Nigeria to manage the debt that can be caused by the ousted regime and possibly by the current one, so that you can limit collateral damage that will stream into this country and create further crisis. Have we solved the problem in Niger State before going to Niger? Have we solved the problem in Niger State? Just yesterday, day before yesterday, 8 coppers were kidnapped in Zamfara State, and nobody is talking about that. And you are talking warming up for war. War for what? It is wrong at the level of ECOWAS. It is even more wrong at the level of AU. Yeah. It's unacceptable. It should not be tolerated. It should not be supported, because the consequences will not be palatable for the countries in the sub-regions and, of course, for the entire African continent.
All right. Also, the United Nations...
And it's only the poor they will punish with their sanction. The sanction is not going to affect those rulers. It's going to affect ordinary persons on the street. And they should not even add to the problem of those people originally. And our country is contiguous to them. And of course, it will tamper with our border security that is even porous before the coup.
All right, Mr. Gbero. Also, the United Nations have also said that they are spending over 20 times more money than usual on fuel for generators to keep millions of actors in Niger from spoiling. Do you think that Nigeria should have, cut off power from Niger?
It was thoughtless action to have cut off that light in the first place. Do you know that it's not that Nigeria is supplying power to Niger? It was because we wanted to dam so that we will harness hydroelectric power. And we reached diplomatic agreement. We should not dam River Niger. And one of the concessions is that Nigeria will supply electricity. Look, River Niger took its source from Futajalon Island, and it flew through, it is flowing through Niger Republic. What will happen to your own hydroelectric power if they now decide to dam River Niger? it will affect the capacity of Nigeria to even generate electricity for itself. So I do not know. I don't know, and if they know, then why are they taking that type of that is counter? It's not in your own economic interest. It's just a brandish showmanship that is type of chaotic policy play out we are having. It's counterproductive. In the long run, it will affect Nigeria. And it's not, temporarily, it may put Nigeria into energy crisis. But at the end of the day, Nigeria will suffer more in the long run if they don't restore that electricity now. If they are able to dam that reverse and with support of external forces like Russia, providing them capacity to now build their own dam, Nigeria is in trouble in the long run.
All right, let's move on and talk about this one. Now, the Minister of the FCT, that's Wike, has charged top officials of the administration to sit up or seek redeployment elsewhere. And he ordered the director in charge of Abuja Environmental Protection Board, AEPB, to clean up the city, that he would be on his case to the point of increasing his blood pressure. What are your thoughts?
That is errant rubbish. Why must your work increase other person's blood pressure? Is that a healthy statement? That is not a statement of leadership. You motivate people to work. People are not animals. That is what you call leadership. And this is the type of character and words that create the condition for rulership in Africa and accommodate dictatorship that continue to make people look up to the military in terms of depression. So those are wrong statements. You are in Abuja recently in the interest of everybody. You don't need to go there and increase everybody's pressure. It's because you use to build this type of character. That is why they see themselves as thank God. People must be able to go to their work with good body temperature and pressure, and not put anybody under tension and everything. Your mandate is to contribute to the development of Abuja. None of them build Abuja now. Abuja was even built under military and beautifully built under the military and everything. So adding value to it should not increase it. You shouldn't use it to trigger or increase any other person's pressure. Just do your work and do it well. It's as simple as that. Leaders motivate people. They don't scare them. They don't create atmosphere of fear around their work, as if they are working for a leopard or a lion.
You know, you also.
So I think we should be temperate in our language, in our advice, in our attempt to make people do their work and do their work well.
You know, he also talked about demolitions as well. He said Abuja is going to see a couple of demolitions in some place, but he also promised about that he will see to projects on projects.
It's here that you hear that language. It's here that you have all those language. You have a demolition anywhere. What people are talking about. So a leader, he should have come to the table with how are you going to increase the unit of houses in Abuja through social housing, building for the few. Look, planning or planning is anchored. It's not only anchored on physical planning alone. It's anchored on physical planning with humanistic planning and social justice. Those are the tripods that make urban renewal to be sustainable. Not bring that issue. Just wrote Caterpillar out. Who gave you this land? You demolish people's land and everything. Those create condition for anger, frustration, and for further violence. That's why you see people hands. This is not a justification, but you see people destroying government property today. Government destroyed their own before. Look, issues of displacement is a serious international crime. It's a criminal. You can do it for development, but you must justify it. You can, and adequate compensation must be made. It's not coming to the theater of radio or television and begin to boast the respect of capacity to destroy. Government is not meant to destroy. People have wrong power of law. You can put penalty, provided they have not infringed severely on what they call master plan. Master plan is only government that knows what they call their own master plan. Another minister will come. Where appropriate plan yesterday in Abuja has become obsolete now. Another will come after Wike and define his own interpret his own master plan. Who does that? Is that a country? These are people that run government on the railway of vendetta. It shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be as bad as that. Plan for what you want to do. If there's what you can adjust, and people have infringed on law, they can pay penalty. Demolition does not show. It's not heroism. People have infringed on what we call master plan. Look at it critically. And if that place is meant to build out and that type of houses, you don't need to demolish it. What you need to do is to impose penalty on them, which could be valued at maybe 20% of the valuation of that property or 10% of that to pay as tax, and then you correct the error. That's how people work. You don't do things that everybody is just doing. Of course, they turn the country to jungle. That's why everybody will come, be demolished, and say itself as champion, and people will equally hail him. So there are ways of doing things. He should bring to the table the plans he has to increase the house units in Abuja through social housing development plan. He should bring to the table our transportation plan, the mechanism for transportation plan in Abuja will work. It should bring to our rail system will work in a place like Abuja. And then in course of that development, if there is need for demolition, and adequate compensation must be paid. Those are the things that country to work. Country, because we want to develop it, put people under tension. When you drive people to the periphery after taking over their lands in the city centers, some of them become criminal. It has consequences in what you can imagine. Social costs, and of course, cost to their children, their family, unity, and every other thing. So the plan is not people are taking people's house away. You take their children away, take other things away. You take some will be living with neighbors and everything, creating social crisis and conflict and chaos across the country and in those areas particularly.
Yeah. All right, so let's just touch on this one before we go. Now, former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Daisy Ani, has been charged with bribery offences relating to her time as Nigeria's oil minister. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, it's good for her because the justice that we couldn't get is very, very shameful that despite our relationship with Britain, we couldn't achieve our extradition for 8 years of Buhari. We didn't achieve that. It's very shameful.
All right, we lost Mr. Aguero due to network glitches. Let's just take a look at Mr. and Mrs. before we go. And Mrs. is actually speaking, says, a man harassed you in front of over 30 people and you did nothing. I was ashamed. And Mr. replies, it's better. What would have happened if we fought? I was not wearing a boxer underneath. I mean, when you know you're not wearing underwear, there's no need to fight. All right, so that's where we're going to have to call it a wrap this morning. Also, remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. To find out up-to-date stories, go to our website, www.vanguardindia.com to find out more. I am Precious Chukudi.